All right, let's get into this first segment. Here, honestly, pretty bad. A very frustrating segment. So I came across this on TikTok I think a day or two ago, and then people have been sending it to me. They're probably gonna take a look at this. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a look. Now, unfortunately, the main video that I wanted to do this off of is gone. They must have pulled it down. They must have like either banned the guy, or they must have taken it down for community guidelines violations. But there are other videos that give you just as much context. Now, I'm not going to play the music, but this is a content creator called Astro Noke or something, some dumb name. So what it says here is, let's expose them, besties. They will be scared to see their face on the FYP. It's going to be so fun. Hashtag for you, hashtag feminism. Right? So they're posing as their person that, you know, hurt them, as you could see. I'm sorry for being all sensory, but you know, and then they're posing as this guy. So obviously, based on what she's saying, this person assaulted her, right? Then they say ugly ass, you know, MFer. They're dancing a lot, and then they want to make it a trend. So now that already raises red flags, because I've never met somebody who was assaulted who ever wanted to make a trend out of their assault. It is such a deeply it is a very deeply impactful thing on people that I've never seen somebody express themselves in this way. Now, this by itself obviously isn't enough to invalidate it. However, the problem here is apparently it's false, and there's a lot of credible evidence. Here you go. So apparently, if you look up whatever this is just a guy at like a brewery in like some other fucking country that she's claiming assaulted her. Yeah, let's see. Nearby a large lounge area is ready to be fitted out to accommodate future customers. We want to know everything we can before installing everything. Yeah, just some random dude. Now, I suppose it's possible, though very unlikely, that this person did assault them. However, my thing is if that's true, why wouldn't you use a more personal picture, maybe from their Instagram or something? Why would you look on a website for the picture? It doesn't really make sense. It also doesn't make sense because this person removed their video immediately after they got called out for faking it. They didn't defend themselves at all, which is a factor. If you're bold enough to post somebody that you're saying assaulted you on TikTok, why wouldn't you defend that accusation? They back down very quickly. So we have an image from the internet, somebody I think that lives in a completely different country than her. And they are trying to make a trend out of this, which is a problem for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, it's a problem because, to me, it's a signal that there may be a lack of credibility, because I've never seen anybody that was assaulted ever want to make a trend out of their assault. It's something that's deep and it sits with you. But more than that, and this is, it would encourage people who actually were assaulted to expose their assaulters in this way. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. What I am saying, though, is that I think that a lot of young people don't understand that TikTok can become part of your trauma. A lot of young people, I think, dump a lot of their frustrations on the internet and a lot of their traumas. They trauma dump. And the problem is that a lot of times they do it, a lot of times it is for attention. And I understand it, and it's felt as a way to cope. And you should cope with people that you trust and love. But unfortunately, and this is just a concern for me, putting your information out on the internet like this, to me, honestly, I believe it's going to become part of the trauma like years from now, 5-10 years from now. You're going to look back on the situation, you're going to be even more embarrassed and more traumatized by it. You know, when you're sitting at home alone, or trying to sleep, and then you just get those like history thoughts, you know, like those thoughts of the past, like the dumb things that you did. And for some people, they eat at you more than other people. And that's one of my fears. But obviously the biggest issue is that they're literally falsely accusing somebody. And this guy could have gotten hurt if people actually found out who it was. And she wasn't exposed for being a liar. And so what that ends up doing is, first of all, it gives a lot of ammunition to a lot of rape apologists who already invalidate people who are assaulted. Not just women, men as well. They're looking for excuses. It validates those people. Then people who are more like middle-minded and are trying to grasp the concept of rape culture or sexual assault culture, which just takes a while to really like understand it. Those people are going to turn away more from sexual assault culture. And just for context, to me, what sexual assault culture is it's not the act of like, we know this happened situations. There is an aspect of people being invalidated, but for me, a lot of it is like people not understanding boundaries correctly and not advocating for themselves, and then other people who are in the position of power, usually men, physically, because they're physically stronger usually, though it can be women that assault as well, not understanding that they need to make sure that they put people in a position that they feel comfortable saying no. But this is just disgusting. And, you know, I'm not a big advocate of cancel culture. I believe in education culture, but I do have my limits. And I will say that I feel that this goes beyond my limits. Faking being assaulted, or at the very least, lying about who assaulted you, it's a huge no-no to me. It invalidates survivors 100%, and it trivializes like very serious situations that sit with people for the rest of their lives. Fortunately, this is their page. It says couldn't find this account. I screenshotted it. They were banned for community guidelines violations, and I think that's a very good thing because they're just hurting the conversation. I'm happy that they got banned. I think that this was the right call to do because there are some things that you don't need education on. Lying about being sexually assaulted is one of those things. You shouldn't need education on lying about somebody. You know, I can understand not understanding how deeply emotionally impactful it is for somebody, but still, outside of that, you know, you're just so hell bent on creating a trend and getting attention that you put a person in harm's way by making false accusations, and you invalidated survivors who struggle with their issue every single day. It's just terrible. It's terrible. Somebody asked, should a false accusation have the same jail time as the crime itself? That's a hard question. Ideally, sure. You know what I mean? Ideally, yeah. If we could absolutely approve that it's a false accusation, sure. But, like, is that practical? Is it easy to discern what a false accusation is versus somebody perceiving that they were assaulted? We talked about this before. Not setting that boundary, not creating an atmosphere that's comfortable for somebody can make them feel like they're being assaulted. And that's very valid. But, like, legally, it may not be perceived that way. And so we're going to put that person in jail for that. I feel like we're focusing on the wrong things. You should be punished if you have false accusations, but we also need to worry about people coming forward and making sure that they don't feel like if they can't argue their assault well enough that they're going to be put in jail. Because that is a concern as well. Some people, you know, if it's like, oh, if it's a false accusation, well, what determines it being false? You know, it's a lot here. Ideally, I think that you should punish false accusers just as heavily because I think they're terrible people. But at the same time, I feel like it's impossible to figure out who is actually lying or that's just the absolute nuance of the situation. I think social advocation is definitely the most practically the best way to go forward. But I do think it's absolutely deplorable to falsely accuse. I will say, like, just for context, like, you know, being falsely accused of sexual assault, it could be absolutely, like, incredibly damaging. I will say it's not as bad as actually getting assaulted. You know, it's still terrible, but, like, right now we're arguing two horrible things, and I feel like that's not the conversation that we're supposed to be having. What we should be having is, like, conversations about teaching your kids not to be scum, worthless pieces of shit, because if this was my daughter, buddy, if this was my daughter... I would. It would be punished. It would be punished. It's terrible.